put solar to each of them.
I know when we were looking at the solid waste plan in the beginning, we were talking about pin pad gates, and wasn't it, Chris, with you guys, wasn't it about $60,000 or $70,000 per gate, per site? Remember?
It was awful high.
It was really high for
I don't
whatever
think it's
reason. I
that
don't
expensive. We had
remember what it was.
a contractor come in and put pin pad access to all of our shop tools, every tool we had in, because we had people just freely coming in our shop and running some machinery that had really hurt and damaged you had to do. And I think we had 18 pieces of equipment we put it on with individual registered pin pads. I think we were only 20 or 30,000. Because once you buy the software is universal through all sites. And it's just the hardware per gate that you would have to do. And how much the gate themselves cost, I'm not sure. But the actual pin pads really aren't that expensive.
It was a 20,000 per site for getting the gate, but that wasn't including how to operate it.
Mm-mm.
That was just getting the gate and getting it all set up, and then we would have to figure out how to get power to it.
Yeah.
And for almost all the sites, the power's far enough away. That's, that was a big contributing factor when I looked through the old proposals, and Cedar Street's the only one that has power readily available. So, but if we can get a Fed grant that covers the lion's share of it,
It's a lot cheaper than running labor over a period of years.
$100,000, even if we're in 1 year, you can, if that's our 25%, we got $100,000 worth of unallocated allocated man-hour cost just in temporary workers, or not temporary, part-time workers.
I was saying the whole payroll was over half of the.
It's $167,000 for all of our canister employees, not to include our hook truck driver and my admin, or hook truck driver, transfer station driver, and the administrative assistant. Canister employees are $167,000 a year.
Would go a long ways to
So,
paying for equipment.
yeah, if you multiply that number by 3, that'd be the Fed side of it, and you could go, you could have a pretty healthy setup at that point. But our budget isn't enough to sustain that full cost. So if we can get a grant that will cover 3/4 of it, where we're only on that hook for that first initial quarter for that year, then you can be very efficient from that year on. But we can't sustain that initial cost is the problem, and that's where they were at when they went this route. Is this was the cheapest initial setup, because when the program was that far in the hole, it didn't have enough money to sustain the full brunt of setting it up with $20,000 a site and then a $20,000 tech package for it. Probably $20,000 in power costs if they were going to power poles to each one.
So if we'd got a grant for 3/4 of it there, could you get an intercap loan for the rest of it?
I think if we did it, we wouldn't need it, because if you started it at the beginning of a fiscal year, then you don't have that man-hour cost once the construction's done. And then that amount of savings in man-hour costs, that's $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 you would have spent for the remainder of the year on part-time workers would float your budget through the remainder. It would balance out at the end. You'd have to take, do a lot of forecasting and trending to say, okay, some construction's going to take X amount of time. We'll have to have temporary or part-time workers through completion of construction. From that point on, you don't have to have temporary workers. How many months are remaining? What is that left in the payroll? But I would imagine, I can't imagine it would take the majority of it, even a quarter of a year, to install some gates and some software and some solar.
Better not.
Yeah, better not. But that's all on the hope and dream that we get this Fed grant. But it is a potential solution out of the hole much quicker.
So you're going to go ahead and do whatever it takes to apply for that grant then?
Mm-hmm. One way or the other, even if we don't go this route, we can use it to get power and solar and cameras to our sites at a bare minimum. Even if we're not awarded a large enough amount to do the whole, we can at least get part of the way there. Then if we have good years where we're sitting on this 40,000 in recycling, then we can upgrade even a site at a time if we have to at that point. But anything that we can get, we're going to be farther ahead than what we are now. The power of the site is the number one concern because that makes all the rest of the options available.
If we're growing as fast as you're talking, then we're gonna get a lot more in assessments too.
We also deal with a lot more trash.
Yep.
And with our equipment the way it is right now, we're going to have large amounts of payouts before those assessments start really balancing themselves out in our favor.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear from the, when's that due, that grant due?
The grant, when I looked at it, I still had time to work on it going into this winter with Jessica. It's an open grant. Right now each fiscal year they have one. So this is something they've been doing for quite a while. And if you throw any green energy into it, that's one of the articles that I've been reading on the counties that were successful in it. If they showed a green agenda to it at any point in time, that definitely was a mark in their favor. That's why I'm leaning towards the solar side of it, because it shows that we're trying to be eco-friendly.
So it's awarded whenever they.
It's kind of like
It's
our
kind of
grants that we
ongoing.
have for the FEMA pre-disaster relief that we did for the Lone Mountain floodwater and Crow Creek Valley floodwater drainage. We can apply for them. It depends on when they'll pay out. So, according to our engineering firm that helped us with it, most of the time you get denied 1 or 2 times. You just keep on applying and eventually they pay out. So that's realism.
Any questions? Comments?
How many loans are we looking at trying to get, and between it and the grants at this moment?
I would prefer 0 loans, to be quite honest. The loan, it was already set up for loan for the 6 cans before I got there. They'd already been ordered. They'd got here right about the time. So we have a $49,000 loan for that. We have to have a loan to cover our overage at this point. We're no longer able to use PIL. So at that point, we're at 2, and that's too many in my opinion. So I'm not looking to get any more loans at all possible.
So when we did this one loan for the cans, it was just for the cans?
That one, that's how my predecessor had it set up. It was for cans, and then it was also for setting up some of the canister sites, but we were already, when we came down to it, we'd already paid that cost for that fiscal year, and it was supposed to be to reimburse back some of the initial costs to set up those sites. We chose not to reimburse ourselves at that point, because if we reimburse our money to ourselves, our loan's still there, so now we're just having to pay it back with interest. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. So we chose to take the smaller loan amount that we can pay off quicker. So it was just for the cost of the cans, $49,000. And that's what helped keep us from being overrun on budget last year. It was basically the minimum amount of money that they could borrow to not be overspent again for last fiscal year. But those cans were ordered because they needed larger cans for the walk-in gates, which the walk-in gates were concession after they closed the sites down because the general public didn't want to only be able to use the sites when the tenants were there. So when they decided to go with the walk-in gates, they had to have more cans for that. So they purchased 6 more cans to replace the stuff that was in stock.
From what we were talking about, the cans were for rental use, but I think using them for where the walk-in gates was an afterthought. Originally it was,
and that is correct, but they were using their rental cans to float them through the walk-in gate cans until they got some back. So basically, when they used the what few rental cans we did have to man the walk-in gates, then we had no rental cans. So it's easier to get, makes more sense to use our older wore-out cans for rental cans than use 6 brand-new cans for rental cans where we don't have direct control of how they're loaded and packed and transported around a whole lot. So a lot of the repairs that we do to our cans are on our rental cans when they come back. Start dumping a bunch of concrete and stuff in there, they tend to get beat up pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
So how many rental cans do we have? Just 6 then?
I believe we have we have at least 6. We have some. I think we have a 7th one. But it's in pretty rough shape, and we talked about cutting it down to make a grass can out of it because we've patched it about as many times as you can possibly patch it.
Have the rental cans been used pretty well?
It depends seasonally. Like summertime, roofers use them quite a bit. General contractors use them quite a bit. When they go to tear down the old ambulance building, they're going to want several of those for rentals. When they do the general demo, they're not going to. They know they can't dump their concrete in there, but for regular construction debris that's non-asbestos and non-lead, they've asked if they'd be able to, if they won the bid, if they'd be able to use rental cans. So as we go into the winter, I really don't see our rental can business generating a whole lot. So. But seasonally, I'd say yeah.
Because I think when we were looking at them, I had figured we could pay for them in a year and a half, even with a 6 months rental on them.
I think that might be a bit optimistic, judging off of what I saw this summer. But they will end up paying for themselves. But I don't believe a year and a half will recoup $49,000 worth of revenue.
Because I think when she had found cans that were going to be $5,000 a piece.
For 6, but that was the cans, no lids, no expanded metal grating on the lids, all in costs. We were at $49,000 to have 6 complete cans. It's usually from what I've seen so far, you're looking at somewhere $2,000 to $3,000 by the time you get a lid and expanded metal on there.
So it's over $8,000 a can.
Roughly $8,000 a can.
I was thinking it was going to be a lot less than that, didn't you, Chris?
Seemed like it was proposed to be a lot less than that.
I think it was less, but I don't remember the figure.
I thought we were looking at somebody that was gonna use stronger metal on the cans, and that's why we were going with that particular outfit, was that it was a stronger, they were built stronger, heavier.
It came out of Olympus Sales,
I can't remember exactly.
North Dakota or South Dakota, I think. But I don't remember who else she was looking at in the beginning, because in the beginning it was going to be like $6,500 or $7,500 a can, and she found that one outfit that was $5,000. But I don't remember if that was with lids or without lids. And I remember if that was 20 yarders. Originally we were going to get a couple of 40 yarders, weren't we?
There's you can get a mixture.
There's 2 40-yard cans used that we have an opportunity to pick up that we'd be able to use. And Lewis and Clark County has them. They're, or I guess the city of Helena has them. They have fixed height hook trucks. They have 2 that ordered that came in that are not at their standard height. Well, they have the same. All their cans are the same height except for these 2. And occasionally, the hook truck drivers would forget to change the height of their hook, and they've dumped them over on the ground a couple times. So Pete said they're never going to be used ever again. So they're sitting there. He quoted us, I think it was $1,200 or $1,500 a can for the 2 40s that are there, if we were interested in picking them up.
That sounds like a pretty good buy. They got lids.
I don't think, no, they didn't have lids, so we'd be looking at a couple $1,000 for lids for them.
Good buy, but I think we have better priorities.
Exactly, and that's, it sounded like a good deal right up until the transfer truck
Yeah.
decided to do some craziness.
Well, if he's not gonna use them, he'll probably still have them. Okay, and we'll move on to the dumpster diving break-ins.
So, Dry Gulch, canister site, somebody broke the window out of the shack there. And whoever it is has a fairly decent understanding of how business is done here, because our canister attendants usually, when they take in their slips, when they were renting $5 fees, they would keep them in a box inside there, and then when our hook truck driver made the round that next day, he would pull just the invoices. There wasn't ever any cash there, but they broke the window out, got in, rummaged around, scattered everything around, and stole the heater out of one of the shacks. This was after we'd started noticing at Cedar Street our recyclable metal can lid would be partway open come in the morning when our attendant got there. So we put some game cams out. We identified an individual. The sheriff's department reached out, gave him a warning. Said, hey, this is your one warning. And after that individual hasn't been back, but 3 days later, Dry Gulch gets broken into. A week later, somebody cuts the fence at the transfer station and drives back to the recycled metal and was rooting around back there. We got a picture of the truck. We've been working with the sheriff's department on it, but we have had quite a bit of illegal traffic into our sites at night. Told it stake out a couple mornings, came in because that's the great thing about the game cams, time and date stamp. You know about what time they're coming in each time, so they're pretty smart. They must be going there in the afternoon and checking to see what the level of the can is, because if it's empty, they don't come that night. They don't come until it's about half full and useful for them running around in there. But once again, I'm relying on one game cam that actually the road department owns, and I'm running around all these different sites trying to catch individuals. So I will be purchasing a handful more game cams. They're fairly cheap, all in the grand scheme of things. I've got one that's a cell cam that I use for around my house, because I got a wolverine that I'm trying to catch. But I might bring it down just because as soon as anything comes across it, instantly send you a message, and then we can contact the sheriff's department at that point if these break-ins continue.
Cams aren't that expensive.
It's $120 for a cell cam, and it's got a $15 a month type package.
Are they mainly taking metal, copper?
Most of the time, but here recently, all of a sudden, our C&D cans have been opened up. And honestly, we would have never known this was going on to start with if they would have just lowered the lid back down when they were done. Not very considerate. But there is an ordinance against it. There's a $500 fine. And when I talked to the sheriff's department originally, when we saw a picture of the one individual, I did ask if they would give him a warning first time, because if you're digging around in the trash can, life probably hasn't been all that great to you. So the hope was if they reached out and talked to him, that'd be the end of it. So, and I haven't seen that individual on cam again since. So, but we have had other issues at other sites, and it's not. We've had people in Winston's, we had to break in at Dry Gulch, we've had to break in at transfer stations, so they're all over the place. Dawson and Rayersburg have made it unscathed. It's probably because nobody wants to mess with people in Dawson and Rayersburg.
Okay, any other questions on that?
Get the cameras, put them up. Put the people in the newspaper.
Yes, sir. I got a bunch of them.
Sheriff's Department's been pretty cooperative.
Oh, Officer Buck's been great to work with. I've worked with him for each of the individual ones, and he's been incredible to work with. Can't say enough good about him.
Okay. We want a meeting next month? Probably should have. Same
Yeah,
place, same
we're gonna,
time.
I reckon so, because we're gonna have to talk about this truck.
Like I said, as soon as I know, I'll reach out to you guys, let you know what the verdict from Grizzly is, so give you some time to think on options before we get to the next meeting. But I can't really. It's hard to speculate on what to do other than plan for the worst case scenario and hope for the best.
That way you're never disappointed.
Okay. Any topics you guys want for next time, other than that? Just come up.
Yeah, man.
Backhoe at T&E, they're just gonna do whatever it takes to fix that.
No, they're going to give us the hope is it's a cold plug, something small. I don't believe it's the head gasket on it, and I don't believe it's a head. So we just, the shop here didn't want to be making a bunch of repairs on something that was a CAT engine. He said, you'd probably be better to take it to CAT. You're going to spend less money in the long run because, they're trained to, it's their equipment. They know what to look for. So the hope is it's, like I said, something fairly simple is leaking right around the head or the thermostat. So maybe, like I said, we won't know until we hear back more from them. But I don't believe it'll be a major one on that. It's just all the equipment there is, for years prior, it wasn't, it's obvious that it wasn't well maintained. Our loader at the transfer station, we just had to have them pull the cap and replace every hose underneath there because they're all dry rotted and wore out. It's the equipment there is just, it's probably wasn't well maintained. I do want to thank Schaefer Oil for their report. We could have been a lot worse. We could have been halfway to Helena and blown the motor. Had we not had the ability to sample our oil, this was a blessing. At least it gives us some options to start with. We're not dealing with a train wreck on the side of the road.
Hey, Frank, I thought that Mary said that they were doing a lot better job of maintaining things since.
And they are.
On the oil sampling they are, but general maintenance, there was no walk-around sheets,
No,
no
nothing.
360, no pre-inspection, no post-inspection, no any maintenance, routine daily maintenance inspection done on when I started. We now have an inspection, a pre-use and inspection book for every piece of machinery. All fluids are checked every day before they start. That wasn't going on. They were doing their oil sampling like they were supposed to, but that was a long step.
About all they had time to do.
So I was thinking there's a lot more money into the repairs and maintenance after Mary got it back in there.
Well, we've sunk a lot of money in this equipment. A lot. From day one.
And that's where I was saying that an in-frame on that transfer station truck would be foolish. It was not well maintained for the years previous, and we'd be just throwing good money against bad.
Okay. Keep us informed, I guess.
I would.
Anything else? Meeting adjourned.
Mike and I would like to say something. Mike Delcher. Please keep your senses going. We only have 6 more days. Tell them where we're at and how much money we're going to lose if nobody does it.
We're at 60, I think we're at 68% right now.
It's getting better.
650 houses short, each one of them that were short cost us $20,000.
A person for 10 years. So if you guys haven't done it, please do it. They're not extending it. It ends September 30th.
Since Leona started her campaign, we went from we were at the average, but now we're number 3 in the state for censuses being done. So thank you, Leona, for pushing for that.
Well, it takes a couple of minutes on the internet.
Well, if Sorry, Mr. Delcher, but I use him as an excuse. He's not the greatest on the computer, and it took him 8 minutes, so that's not very long.
There's only
So-
9 questions.
Okay, but
They were
let's
the
give
true
him
or
a little
false?
bit of,
That's less than a minute a question, that's pretty good.
but still, if he can do it in 8, that means we could do it in 3. So, but it's just really important, so we only have a few more days, so we have to get that in. And like all they said, the new houses that are coming in, and if we don't get that $20,000, that goes towards the roads, the schools, lunches, so.
So that brings up a question on the silos there where we have empty lots and 10 campers there every week. Is he getting censused? Because he owns that property?
I don't know if they do it for vacant lots. The lady who was walking around door knocking for the census, she was just looking for registered addresses and homes. But some of their maps in the censuses may not be correct, because she had wandered all the way down to Cedar Street's canister station, was looking for 4 more residential houses that were supposed to be past the canister side.
Behind the
Along
willows.
that street, so. Their mapping system might not be top notch at this point.
She could be reading it upside down.
She
this year.
could be.
So, you know, but anyway,
Might have been
please get your
easier.
census done.
I was gonna thank you, Mike, too, for the commissioners and getting rid of that $5 household item fee too, so.
It truly was costing us money in the long run. We brought in $2,400 and just in stamps alone, it was just under $1,000, 900 and change in stamps that we sent out to make 2,400. That's not including ink and toner and envelopes and the man-hour costs, just in my department. And then when it was all said and done, I had to go to the treasurer's department, and it took a lot of their time to be able to bill an invoice to get a $5 fee.
Right.
And every resident that I've talked to now that it's gone is extremely pleased.
And that doesn't include all the ones that came back also with the fake addresses.
Or they just flat out didn't pay.
Is there gonna be something in the paper to?
I will be, I'll write an article to put in there.
I'm sure they're all really pleased, so.
I haven't had anybody that said they're disappointed to see it gone.
I'm sure.
The hope is, and I spoke in the commission meeting when I presented it, the hope is 90% of the stuff that gets left on the ground outside of the gate is large household items. People will wait until the attendants are gone because they don't want to pay the $5 fee, so they can set it on the ground. When I asked the commission to remove it, I also threw in there, like, please, now if we remove this, please wait until the attendant's there to drop your couch or your TV that you don't want anymore, or whatever. Just wait until somebody's there and put it in the appropriate can. You're not going to get charged for it.
It's gonna make a big difference, I think.
It'll save my back a lot of stress. Living on a couch by yourself at
Not
5:30
fun.
or 6 in the morning is not the funnest thing in the world.
No. Okay, we're adjourned again.
She said we were adjourned the whole time.
I know.